One of the things that I always advise women to do is that when you're planning to leave those scenarios, is to have a kind of plan in place of where to go, a place of safety, so to speak. Even looking at the statistics of last year, we found that 97% of those cases in Jamaica where you had a man murdering a woman and that kind of thing, it is within a week after the relationship has officially ended.
Teach my boys to appreciate that no means no.
Right.
No don't means go. It means no.
It doesn't mean persist
Yes.
either.
It doesn't mean try
Yes.
harder.
Let's educate our men that it's okay to hear no. Let's educate our sons to love and nurture our women and just strive for a better society. We need to really protect our women.
Hey guys, welcome back to season 2 of Faded Conversations. We are at the Fade Room and we are the co-owners of the brand. I'm Stefan Chad-Horton.
And I'm Anuki Miller.
And we are ready to take you back into all of the interesting topics that we want to discuss this season. Stay tuned because there's going to be so much more to look forward to, all right?
All right, join us, guys.
A few weeks ago, the topic of the whole violence against women and what happened with Kanice Jackson came up, and I actually posted that I didn't really want this to be something that we just talked about for 2 to 3 weeks. Like
And
most
forget
things
about
on
it.
social media,
Yeah.
exactly. And because social media has a very short memory, and this problem is
Very
a
short.
consistent problem that we keep hearing and be outraged for a little bit and then come back up with it. And this is a cultural shift that we need to try and put in place. But at the same time, we didn't want to be just men in a barbershop talking about what women need to do. I
Right.
think we need to accept some more responsibility on our side and what we need to do to change men in our society.
It definitely has been quite a long time coming that we need to talk on this topic.
Exactly.
As men, not to give excuses, but to provide solutions that can help men as well to protect our women.
We couldn't come to the table and have a conversation about violence against women or what we can do about protecting our women without having a woman present. We don't want to come across as just a bunch of men talking about what women need to do. So, Zoe, I know that you have joined us before from both the mental health side of things, and we wanted to have you present to wear dual hats in this role. So I want to kind of understand, in this scenario or this conversation, anytime it comes up, and it should come up very often because it's not something that we want to talk about for 2 weeks or 3 weeks and it be just kind of pushed under the rug. We hear a lot of talk about what women need to do, like, you know, women need to get a taser or to feel more protected or a firearm or whatever they need to do, or not go out at night, which is just ridiculous. So we wanted to have a conversation from the angle of what men can do and hold men a little bit more accountable. But then I'm very cognizant of the fact that there is a mental health angle to this as well. So what role does like upbringing or your mental health play in this violence against women conversation?
Well, that's such a loaded question, first and foremost. And thank you for thinking of me in this context as well, because, you know, oftentimes I am on the tail end of things where the victims, quote unquote, are coming to me. And oftentimes, you know, court-ordered persons who are perpetrators of the violence are there as well. And one of the things that I have realized with a lot of the men is who are perpetrators of violence against women in general have a lot to do with the culture, being that they're thinking that it's okay. It's something that they have seen. It's something that's been brushed under the rug. A lot of the time we are thinking that our justice system won't come up anything. So if it is reported, you know, there's always that empty threat of call the police, no? Or, you know, or there's not much follow through that happens. But in general, one of the major things that comes to mind in terms of what men can do in the fight against violence against women is to respect boundaries, be aware of what those boundaries are. You know, we have so many platforms about feminism and rights of women and so on, and men feel like, you know, just simply reposting is enough. But to be vocal about it, to say, you know, I am very much in support of a woman saying, no, you can't do that to me, or no, it's not okay for you to expect this when I give you that, you know. As a woman growing up in Jamaica, one of the famous phrases my father drilled into me from very early was freeness is penis. I know that sounds quite controversial, but you basically know what the exchange means. You can't expect anything free from a man without expecting that you have to give something in exchange. And so that whole culture has been seemingly normalized, I would say.
I was talking to Andrea about it a little before this, that that whole, like, us in a setting like in a barber shop or a car wash, when we hear certain things like, yo boy, I did take a girl on a date last night, so I'm gonna link her for the thing in the evening. Yeah. We kind of just so desensitized to that, and what we hear in those settings, that we personally don't think anything is wrong with it. We kind of laugh it off. We just kind of sweep it under the rug and hope that it's not really so it go. So it's and I think that especially in the party culture, that whole thing of you bring out girl and you get girl drunk and then you expect thing at the end of the night is a big part of our culture, whether we want to admit it or not. So, and we have put on party for 15, almost 20 years now. So, yeah.
I mean, even working in the nightclub atmosphere. I mean, for me, it's a day in, day out thing. You know, and you have, unfortunately, you have some women. The first thing they're gonna ask is that you're gonna buy them something to drink. I think it goes both. The education goes both way also. Because you have women who enable men, and then you have some men, when they are enabled, then they don't understand or they're lost. They lose all sense of boundaries once they've stepped into the realm of, okay, here's an exchange for an exchange, So where does it stop?
Exactly.
Even to add to that whole thing of the whole male ego and what it is to be a man, that whole inflation of, oh, you carry a girl out, so you must get certain things so you can talk about it in the barbershop and stuff. Perhaps we can change the face of it to say that it is, you are a big man if you respect her boundaries, or you're a big man to say that, oh, we just take with time, there's always this thing of ridicule to say, what you waiting on, or, there's that, a lot of ridicule,
The people that you bring around you can't condone these kind of conversations either, because a lot of these situations that we're seeing that happen to Canis, that man has friends, that man knows that him stay so, that man knows that him probably think that way, and a lot of these situations where we see about violent men or violent actions, their friends around them already know them have these tendencies, or they run a little thing, or they've said something in the past and then they take it as a joke.
Yeah.
Joke can only joke so much until joke is not a joke anymore type of thing. So
mixed culture, I mean, that's a big part of Jamaican society, the gimmicks culture.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
You don't want to be telling a story and, you've given. And then your
There's no
brother asks
reward in the
you,
end.
say,
so they go on by your side.
So we as friends need to
There we go.
change the conversation
exactly.
and change how we talk about the experience.
True.
Now, first of all, we need to have a national campaign to educate our boys, right? First thing, they need to realize that women are not our property. The expectation, and then women, on the other hand, need to understand that not because you get wally lick means that the man love you. We need to change that culture. Next thing, we need to have stricter penalties for these perpetrators. And then as women now, as the victims, they need to stop this whole mentality like, guess what? We are the victim, not gonna come out right. As you alluded to that, Zoe, as you alluded to the conversation, we need to cut out this whole thing where you say, boy, people are informer. You understand? You know, so your brethren is along this line. You know, so them have these traits. You know that they are about this. Come on, man. Set the bar, set the mark, cut it off. We need to get rid of this whole informer because you know, so, yo, this person stays so, him stays so. Come on, advertise it, let people know.
I definitely wanted you to be a part of this conversation because not only because we're both fathers to daughters, but you are in a very unique position on a daily basis how you do with social butterflies, because your promotions company is probably one of the most reputable promotion companies in Jamaica,
Yeah.
and you have to deal with young women who are going out there to talk to strangers every day.
Right.
Usually in not so comfortable settings, wearing not so covering clothing,
Right.
all those kind of things. Like, how do you on a day-to-day make the girls that are in your team feel safe, or what do you tell them, or what do you put in place to make them safe in that environment?
Well, as the gentleman here pointed out, that I do support your notion that there needs to be some nationalization as it relates to our approach
Yes,
to
definitely.
this issue,
Yes.
because it needs to be addressed, and it needs to be addressed at the core of it,
Definitely.
right? And to answer your question, Chad, working with young ladies, and we participate in promotions, we work at events, so it puts the ladies in different scenarios, different
Yes.
situations,
Yes.
different environments. And the one that is most concerning to me is when they go to events, and you find that it is much more heightened at that point, because we're dealing with drunk men.
Definitely.
And not only that, you're dealing with drunk men who are being served by these ladies, if it is a setting where they're doing bottle service per se.
Yeah.
And it's a service environment, so tips are going to be
Yes.
expected.
Right.
So there we go again with the exchange, right? So this girl, you're coming to serve my table. Me and my friends, and we're buying 5-6 bottles of Hennessy, and at the end of the day, we're going to tip you. So if I feel like pinching you, or if I feel like touching you, or if I feel like talking to you in a certain way, you should be okay with that. Because here I am spending $100,000, and at the end of the day, I might give you a $500. Reality.
Yeah.
And the type of entitlement that comes with that expectation, it is ridiculous.
Yeah.
So we make it a top of our priority to provide training for these ladies,
Yes.
and we put them in situations and actual scenarios and how to deal with it.
So I am a patron now, and just make me $1 million. Decide to come to one of your event.
Right.
I might see Zoe and think that because Zoe is wearing something with like a cleavage, she actually dressed for me,
Right.
and she dressed to impress me. How, as a man, would you expect me to deal with that? Because when you have these girls, they are way out of my league. I'm out of my depth.
Right.
You understand me? Basically in the deep. But what is giving me that confidence is the money in my pocket.
There we go.
Are you saying that you have facilitated or offered that amount of scaffolding where these young ladies are actually trained to deal with these persons on a daily basis?
And I'll give you a perfect example. So I tell the ladies that you are here to work.
Yeah.
You are here to make money. You're not here to make friends. And most importantly, you're not here to make enemies. And as what you said, these are the mindset of a lot of these men.
Yeah.
So if somebody approaches you inappropriately or says something inappropriate, the automatic reaction of an average person is to lash back.
Right.
Hey boy, don't chat to me
Yes,
so.
yes, yes.
Or, don't, you know what I mean? So,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
instead of deflecting back that same negative energy,
Yeah.
flip that into a positive, flip the script. So he now can look into him and says, you know what, I just passed my place with this girl, but she was respectful to me. Because you find that when the girls or anyone at all, they deflect back the same energy, it escalates it.
Yes.
So it's a psychological approach that I teach them to use, and in most cases,
Yeah.
it does work.
Thank you.
When it comes down to the inappropriate touching, that is where we draw the boundaries.
Yes.
So I advise them to please stand up for yourself. So if somebody pinches you or touches you inappropriately,
Yeah.
let them know respectfully, sir, I didn't appreciate how you touched me a while ago.
Yeah, yeah,
right? I'm here to work, and and I would appreciate you treat me with some respect.
Definitely.
So
Okay, all right.
one thing I would want to have us, from an employer standpoint, is to empower our women that no money is good enough to accept that disrespect
Great,
from a man.
great.
And support
Yes.
them. Support their claims when, they come and say, this guy disrespect me, or he's being touchy or anything like that. And stand up for them. Let them feel that you have their backs and
Yeah.
that they won't, one, risk losing their job. Because remember, these are livelihood for them.
Yeah.
They're probably already in a situation at home where it's already abusive mentally, right? Because they can't afford to pay the rent or they can't afford to buy the food. So they depend on a man already. So if they depend on a man at home and or depend on a man in the workspace or the employer, we have to protect them both ways. So as employers out there who are employing these young women, protect them, listen to them, support them, and don't let them feel afraid to really come to you with a situation.
And that's where the emotional intelligence actually come in play. And Zoe, we are of a tactile culture. We like to touch. We growing up.
Yeah.
Socialization, we love touch. Even when we used to see the dolly, then we touch. You understand?
Yes.
We like to touch. How do you correct this type of behavior as it relates to the boys? Because we need to,
I
as
get
Luke
you.
said, when we empower the women, we empower the nation. Right? We refer to Jamaica as her. We refer to Mother Earth as her. Even the songs that they sing, even in our national pledge, right? We have we say that Jamaica may under God increase in beauty. Beauty refer to a female figure versus a male.
But you notice with all the examples that you use, nature, Africa, the land, these are all things that men generally control, manipulate, change around, and even listening to you guys a while ago, certain language and what you use. If I was a victim listening, I said, but these are excuses, man insecure, man this, man that. You get what I'm saying? So it's little things, subtle things like this may tell a woman, you know what? They're just gonna make excuses for me. Now, as a psychologist, what I'm always being attacked with, so to speak, is understanding behavior doesn't necessarily excuse it. So I'm happy that you guys highlight the fact that men can be insecure. It takes a lot of bravery to say you're looking at a woman, you know, to put yourself out there to say, yo, I like you. And for her to like, you know, it can, the reaction is to be defensive, maybe to be aggressive and that kind of thing. But also in that sense too, as men, and it goes back to previous sessions we've done before where we talked about abuse against men, where, you know, as men, we need to learn how to manage our emotions in a healthier way. Why is it that when you feel offended, the thing is to inflate, to be aggressive, to shout, to amplify, versus to say, oh my gosh, you know, culture for women, if you feel a way, you cry. Or you get very verbal about it, but not necessarily resort to physical things. But you know, it's a similar thing with men in terms of managing emotions. You get excited, you want to touch, yes, but again, learning to manage those emotions. Just like with the training you do for how women should react in these situations, men just the same to say, may have to change the culture in terms of how do we approach women. Does it have to be a case where you laugh and touch the shoulder? Does it have to be a case where there's this give and take of tipping or paying for dinner and expecting that? You know, so you guys bring up a lot of very good points, but even in our language, when we talk about these things, we have to be very mindful as well that they don't come across as excuses, but more explanations. So yes, it gives context because again, there can be backlash from this, but when you look at the situation with these instances where men end up shooting or hurting someone, there was a build-up, there was a cascade, and I think one of you mentioned before that women take advantages of situations as well, where they may lead on the thing and give the impression that, but at the same time, at the end of the day, one can change their mind.
Yeah, that's a very important thing that we need to touch on as well, the whole consent part, because it's not just about, okay, yes, you went out for drinks or yes, you've seen this person more than once. That equals, yes, something is going to happen. You could have done something or there could have been some interaction that changes her mind along this process. And she's free to change her mind just like we are free to change our mind. If we take a girl out on a second date and we see her do something that is just an absolute turn off for us to her, then we just have to accept that, okay, fine, just like we can walk away. She can decide to walk away too, regardless of who has spent the money. We both spent our time, we both did something, and people can decide to just go their separate ways. It's not a guarantee of anything that is going to happen.
Because even at school, I teach my boys to appreciate that no means no.
Right.
No don't means go. It means no.
It doesn't mean persist
Yes.
either.
It doesn't mean try harder.
And I mean, I have spoken to someone when I was doing a study, a research once, and he said to me that because of how we are socialized, right? So maybe you can tackle this one better than us as males. He said to me that most of the family structure in Jamaica, they are matriarchal versus patriarchal, right? So the mothers never, maybe 90% of the female don't leave. So when the relationship develops with a man and a woman, it is because his mother never leave him like our father, we get up and leave.
Right.
It is hard to accept you as a female leaving him.
Very good.
Now, how do we
That's a good point.
treat situations like these?
Okay, so I feel like so far we've been talking a lot about like the one-off instances where you can have violence against women, but the more complex nature of this whole beast, so to speak, is the whole courting process. These things don't just happen overnight between a man and a woman. It's not just a lady crossing the road. She refused the advances, you say, "Gwe." And that is another instance of it as well. But you do have the interpersonal relationship aspect of things too, where just like with dating and courting and leading up to marriage, is a similar situation with dynamics of violence. Where a woman may say something where she knows will slice a man, so to speak, and then of course his reaction is aggression, tit for tat, or to hurt more. And so in these instances, you know, how do we navigate? Because sometimes, well, not sometimes, most of the times persons feel like they get in too deep. You know, we've invested so much, we share bills. What will happen if I move out? I can't afford. There's all of this mental things of all the factors as to why I should stay. And our culture, unfortunately, doesn't make abuse be a good enough reason to leave. You know, when we look at the grand scheme of things, I've had instances where in hairdressing salons, where women will say, boy, we will take a one beating once a month because all the bills paid, I get to go to hotel every 2 weeks. Every time him beat me, him buy me something nice, or him treat me nicely, and all of those different factors too. So we do have to take that into consideration as well. That is not the easiest thing, and our culture says that abuse, whether physical, sexual, verbal, is simply not enough to leave. And that is another aspect of culture that we definitely may have to start shifting as well.
Definitely.
Mr. Brown, he mentioned about training his female workers, and he mentioned about a customer who has probably $100,000 or spending $100,000 at one of his events, and probably would be rude to one of the female workers. But what men need to understand is if you come to spend money and you expect a tip, or the lady is expecting a tip, she's expecting a tip for the service she provides, not because she's dressed and she's showing a little cleavage or a little ass. But so that there's a difference there that you need to, you know, you're tipping me because of the service that I'm providing to you. You're not tipping me because I'm dressed.
It's not because you like me.
No, or not because you like me.
Or I'm attracted to you, or you find me attractive. It's not.
Secondly, I think also, you said you're a principal. I think that our schools need to teach our youth grooming, how to open a door for a lady. When you're going into class, if a young girl has struggling with her bag, teach her how to help with the bag. Certain mannerisms need to be taught back or brought back into our schooling system. It might not be in the home, but when they go to school, it can be brought into their daily educating life, you know. So when they go out into society, they know how to. Men no longer open the doors for women, or even senior citizens. You go to the bank and a senior citizen wants a seat. The younger men, they don't even offer
Unfortunately, you're preaching to the choir.
Yeah, we are men that do that. We are the minority, but we're men that do that.
That's a very great point. And you're right, because when these young ladies go out and work, you're there to work. You're not there to make friends, you're there to work. Not there to make enemies, you're there to work. And the level of service you provide, it dictates what you take home as a tip. It's a very valid point, and for everyone out there who's listening, that's it's a fundamental core of any environment that you go in service. But you touched on a great point where you mentioned that the training needs to be done where where men understand that for me, that my masculinity is to help to protect, right, and to assist femininity.
And that goes back to, I think, why communication in these situations, just between men and women in general, even outside of the workplace, is probably a very important thing, because like you mentioned, or you mentioned it many times in this conversation, man put on parts from woman's house and send them go to school and all of that. Like, what is the expectation? Probably, if we have more conversations on what is expected if I do this, then we won't find ourselves in situations where one person decides to leave and violence is like the only option there, because there was no clear, like, I don't want to make it sound transactional, but there was no clear expectation set from before. So then there is no, the only thing that you are left with at that point in time is what you feel about the situation. And sometimes removing that emotion from it is what will draw us. Like you mentioned that, and I want you to touch on it in your own words, that first week after leaving a situation like that is the most dangerous. So,
Okay. The complexity of a violent situation within a relationship. One of the things that I always advise women to do is that when you're planning to leave those scenarios, is to have a kind of plan in place of where to go, a place of safety, so to speak, where it cannot be predicted. Something where you can line up authorities to say, listen, I'm leaving on this day, or I have left now and I'm scared for my life. You have it documented and that kind of thing, because the first 7 days after someone leaves a violent relationship is usually the window in which it escalates to the point of murder, suicide, or burning down the house and that kind of thing. And even looking at the statistics of last year, we found that 97% of those cases in Jamaica where you had a man murdering a woman and that kind of thing, it is within a week after the relationship has officially ended that these situations came about. And you always get the interviews on TVJ and all these places where they say, oh, I knew he was violent, oh, him did threaten, see the voice note here. We're always looking at it after the fact. Anticipate that it can get that bad. It's better to be safe than sorry. Tell persons and there's a lot of shame associated with violence usually, to know that you find yourself with a man that would beat you and that kind of thing. And so persons aren't willing to talk about it, just like what he was saying earlier, not wanting to share your vulnerabilities and that kind of thing. But as Chad said earlier, it's hard being a woman, and so there can be times where you're just automatically on a defensive. So it's better not to say anything for persons to take advantage of you, but at the same time, tell persons, let it be vocal. I'm not safe, I don't feel okay, and let persons know.
So a part of our culture is, to stay out of people's business. Or, we see from the outside, our friends are, in a toxic relationship, right?
Yeah.
What would you say to that person? How can they help their friend that's in that situation to help, provide them help, to get them help? Okay. How can we do that? How can we assist? What's the best approach in your professional
I'm very
opinion?
happy you asked that question, because we have, as persons within this field of work, psychologists, social workers, pastors, there's an act of confidentiality. So if you hear that your neighbor is in an unsafe situation, you can come to any one of us one away and say, listen, this is happening at John Brown's house. I'm not sure, I can't verify, but check it out for me. And if you find that person is not doing anything, go to someone else. I am happy to say I'm not the only psychologist. There's not just one social worker. You know what I mean? So you can go to these persons, and if they say, who tell you? It is by law, it is prison work if we say where we get the information from, so to speak. You know, so it's definitely a safe avenue if you yourself don't want to intervene or you feel like you're ill-equipped. You know, you can definitely go to any one of us, let us know. CDA is there, the
OCR.
courthouse is there, OCR, JDF, Sisoka, all of these different places. But it could be something as simple as just going to your pastor and saying, I'm not comfortable with this. And they have the line of persons that can go and investigate the matter.
We talk about mothers, right? I want to so as Chad mentioned, you know, we're fathers. You know, I just became a father, what, 3 years now, right? And my wife, she's a psychologist, so she used to do social work, so with the SOS Village. So she has a background and she thinks like you. So my daughter, you know, so I have a relationship with her where, you know, I'm from an old school type of parenting. So whenever she doesn't want to do something, I say, come on, daddy, give you a sweetie. And my wife was like, don't you dare offer the child a sweetie to do. And I'm like, but when I was little, me get sweetie or treats. When she's like, no, you have to show her the importance of what she needs to do and why we are asking her to do it. And I looked into it and I was like, yo, you know, that deep, you know, that deep. So what's your take on that type of parenting? And you know, that common thing, giving your kids sweetie for rewards for doing things.
We do put a value on
instant gratification,
gratification and not necessarily, as I said, a long-term building with someone or a partner.
Because, you know, one of the major issues I have with like a lot of my clients now when we're doing like occupational therapy and stuff is, go back to school. It's 3 years, and after this you have job security. But miss, them hiring now.
On a more serious note, gentlemen, let's do everything we can to protect our women. Let's do everything we can to educate our men in what we need to do. Let's educate our men that it's okay to hear no. Let's educate our sons to love and nurture our women. And just strive for a better society. We need to really protect our women. Like, it's really bad here, and we all need to work together. Men, women, you know, children, kids. Like, let's just live in love, right? And do the best we can to protect each other.
So how can men help in the struggle against violence against women? As we've been talking about throughout this segment, is to, you know, maintain your boundaries, be clear about what it is. Don't be afraid to reach out for help. You know, there are so many persons in the service industry that can, you know, help with getting out of a violent situation, preventing it altogether. Psychologists, social workers, pastors, there's so many different organizations. And if you find that you reach out to someone and you don't see the changes or the assistance that you require, keep talking, find different persons to reach out for help. It's worth it, and in the long term, it's all about your safety. Every individual's right to live free and safely is important, so be persistent about it.
And also, men, when you come to places like the feed room, I guess it's a sharp cut. It might make you feel overconfident, but please do not let that overconfidence throw off your better judgment, all right? Cool. And also,
You know, it's really a thing, right? You know, it's a thing. Like when men leave the barber, especially here, it's like them walking on air. It's like, listen. And I know you're hearing all of this advice on what men can do, you know, and I know that many persons who are watching are the converted and continue to be the few and far in between until it becomes popular. Anticipate the pushback to hear that, oh, you're miserable, or oh, you don't entertain certain things. Be prepared to take that backlash, because you know in the long term you are contributing to society and keeping our women safe.
quite a long time coming that we need to talk on this topic.
Exactly.
As men, not to give excuses, but to provide solutions that can help men as well to protect our women.
Exactly.
And I think this episode touched on that a lot. And I'm happy that we had women in the barbershop
in the actual
to actually
conversation.
speak and give their opinion as well.
Exactly. I didn't want it to come across as misogynistic or
Very
anything to
much
that
so.
effect. So
Yeah.
I definitely know that we touched on some very good points. And come join us and let's get
It's a
into the
very
deep of the
interesting,
conversation.
I would say, very
Episode.
interesting.
All right, guys. Thanks for joining us on season 2 of Faded Conversation. Check us out on the next episode for more interesting topics. We look forward to seeing you.